What's up, duelists? As many of you guys know, yesterday was RBET New York, so my voice is going to be a little bit shot because I was yelling a lot and doing commentary all day for about 12 hours straight, and so I'm going to be speaking a little bit more quietly in this video than usual, but thank you guys for your patience with regards to this event and everything. It's a banger event. I've got top 8 gameplay for you guys, some of the most insane stuff, but first a few facts before we get into the top 8. Now, in the top 8, there were 8 different decks. There was 1 Vayu Turbo, 1 Gear Town, 1 Amaryllis, 1 Diva Hero, 1 Black Wings, 1 Gladiator Beast Iados deck list, 1 Twilight Sworn, and 1 Hero Frog. This is the top 8 match between Ciro and Raunuk, aka Cormac. Both these players, incredibly talented. Ciro is playing Diva Hero, and Raunuk, aka Cormac, is playing Gear Town, Mausoleum, Black Garden, Autonomous Action Unit, Frogs. It's the most insane deck. Also, if you guys want the deck lists, they will be published later today as soon as I'm done recording them. The event literally ended like 3 hours ago. I came back to the Airbnb, took a quick nap, and I wanted to get you guys this footage as quickly as possible. So thank you guys for your patience. Make sure and drop a like. Tell me which of these decks, which of these matches is your favorite in the comments below. And let's just get right into things. Alright, so Ciro versus Raunuk. I'm going to go ahead and put this on 2x speed because, you know, it's post-commentary. We can do a little bit faster. Alright, so looks like Raunuk wins rock, paper, scissors. Friendly little fist bump there. Raunuk and Ciro, two of the nicest guys, by the way, that ever existed. Just want to say that. So very, very happy to see both of them make top 8. By the way, they are playing on beautiful Yggdrasil mats, which of course you can check out at yggdrasilmaterials.com. Beautiful gifts from Yggdrasil. Very, very, very kind stuff. Gorgeous design and everything. And those were part of, just part of the cool community-led stuff that is happening lately. So the game starts off with Allure of Darkness, Banish Plague Spreader Zombie from Ciro. There's a Treeborn Frog sent from Swap Frog on Cormac. This is like part of the course for most Frog decks. Raunuk gets attacked down to 6,300. I was doing the life in real time and the game counts in real time, so it's going to be a little bit not immediately updated, but, because we're all running on like very little sleep, and I'm doing using a very last minute Matchbox production setup at an undisclosed location that we moved to after the venue closed on us. That's the reason, of course, that we are recording the top 8 in post, because the event ran so late that the venue closed. So here comes Sacrifice, the Treeborn for Ancient Gear Giltron Dragon. This is a really cool card. Gear Town allows you to tribute summon Ancient Gear monsters for 1 less tribute. And the Ancient Gear Giltron Dragon, the only effect that you need to know about is when it declares an attack, it cannot be stopped. No, I'm just kidding. It basically, your opponent can't use spells and traps until the end of the damage step. So it has a sort of like cold wave effect, but only while it's attacking. And when I spoke to Raunuk about this deck, however many years ago, when I recorded a deck profile with him on it, which you guys can find here on the channel, showcasing his beautiful cards and beautiful collection, a lot of misprints, a lot of max rarity, just like crazy shenanigans. He did say that you always draw at least 1 Ancient Gear Dragon, so you kind of got to prepare for that fact. You can see there in play, he has a miscut Ancient Gear Giltron Dragon. Very, very crazy. His opponent just pointing that out, just saying that is the sickest thing I've ever seen. Flips up Black Garden, and that's going to allow him to play through Gores, or Tragodia, or Battle Fader, or whatever. He's going to attack over the Gilman for 1,300, and then he's going to attack directly for 3,000, and Gores is going to be dropped here. Now the Gores is going to trigger the Black Garden, and so is the Gores token. So both the Gores and the Gores token are going to have their attacks cut in half. And Raunuk's going to summon 2 800 Rose tokens to his side of the field. They're just going to use a marker there to signify that the cards are halved with regards to stats. And that's totally understandable. Just want to make sure they maintain an accurate game state, etc., etc. So, yeah, Ciro drops down to 3,700, under a ton of pressure, doesn't really have a way to come back from this, and I believe Cormac has his copy of Treacherous Trap Hole set there as well, so it's going to be a pretty tall order for Ciro to come back from this game. This matchup is very volatile. Both decks are capable of doing some incredibly degenerate shit. Diva Hero can OTK you out of nowhere. You can also just put up a couple of absolute zeros and be like, good luck, have fun. Cormic's deck, well, you're seeing what it does in real time here. Attacks the other token, and then once he declares the attack with the Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragon, this is a very good play here from Raunuk. His opponent can no longer activate that set spell and trap card, so in the declaration window, Raunuk's going to go ahead and activate Treacherous Trap Hole. His opponent can't respond to this because Ancient Gear Gajiltron's effect is still in effect, so his opponent can't activate the set spell or trap card because technically the Gajiltron Dragon is still attacking. So he still can't activate spells and traps. He's locked under that sort of windowed Cold Wave. The Treacherous Trap Hole is going to be used on declaration, and then a replay is going to occur here where the Gajiltron is going to attack for 3,000, and then a Black Garden token is going to attack for 800 and for game. So it's going to be game one going to Raunuk. We're going to get a game counter up here in a second just to signify who's won what games, etc. But yeah, so things looking pretty good for Raunuk. You know, up a very convincing game. Ciro had a pretty rough draw. I mean, no Stratos. That's tough. The Diva Hero decks, I think, when they don't open Stratos, you have to, like, cobble together a few power effects here and there to really get going. And one of those effects that he was hoping to rely on, or Ciro was hoping to rely on, was Gores. But because of the nature of Black Garden, the Gores really didn't amount to anything at all. One thing Ciro could have done was hope to rely on that Gores token's 3,000 defense to keep him alive there for a good bit of time, but Raunuk just drew his one of Treacherous Trap Hole, which is a pretty easy and clean way to out not just the 3,000 defense point token, but the set monster that was new there as well. So pretty solid stuff from Raunuk, and I like the way he navigated that game. Just kept the pressure up, kept the aggression on, made his opponent use his resources defensively. That's one of the ways you can dismantle this Diva Hero deck, is if you can force them to use their OTK pieces just as like ways to summon a big monster to run something over by battle, but not really get the OTK, then you can limit their resources, and as a result, it sort of grinds them to a stall, not stall, but like to a weaker standpoint where they're not able to go for that big OTK turn that deck is trying to set up usually. This is just going to be set one back row, lone back row from Ciro. He does get to go first here in game two. And Raunuk's going to have a slow start too, which is set one monster. So another back row is going to be commit to the field here from Ciro. Here comes Sacrifice Treeborn for Ancient Gear Engineer. If you guys don't know what this card does, it's a 1500 monster. When it's targeted by trap cards, I believe it negates the trap cards, and it has a similar Cold Wave in the attack declaration effect as the Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragon. And when it does inflict battle damage to the opponent, you can destroy one spell or trap card your opponent controls, I believe. But it's going to be met with Bottomless Trap Hole, so it's going to get banished. It's a cool card, and it's very useful utility in this deck because it can blow up whatever, basically, that is causing you trouble, whether that's pulling the rug or, you know, various annoying sideboard cards that usually come in against Frog-style decks. Here's going to be a Caius the Shadow Monarch, also miscut there, as you can tell. Very insanely cool card to have a misprint of because Caius is just that guy. And it's going to hit a Deck Devastation Virus and banish it, and it's also going to connect for 2,400 here. So one of the things you have to think about if you're Cormic is why hasn't Ciro played any cards? And a big reason that these Diva Hero decks might be sandbagging is on one end, they may have Gores Trag, right? Because they play those cards. But since he's been committing back row, obviously it's not Gores. On another end, he could be bricked on like Malicious Miracle Fusion, in which case you want to get aggressive as soon as possible and just close out the game before they can unbrick those cards. And then the third sort of like possibility is that they're waiting to use their brain control to reversal OTK you. So that's kind of like the third and usually most likely option, because if your opponent's drawn like 8 cards, what are the chances they're bricked on triple Miracle double Mally? Whereas what are the chances they're just waiting to sort of counterattack with that brain control, which is just, it's much more likely that they've drawn one brain control than triple miracle, double Mally, that type of shit. So yeah, there's gonna be draw for turn. Looks like a spell card, and it looks like brain control. So yeah, that's gonna be immediately played. Ciro's life total is dangerously low here, but it doesn't look like Cormac has that powerful Gear Town combo to really close things out. He does have a Gores of his own, but rarely will we ever see a brain control without a way to convert the monster that was stolen, and the monster that's being converted here is Caius into a Caius of Ciro's own. That's going to banish the Gores, and it's going to drop Brownick down to 4,600. And 4,600 is a very dangerous place to be life total wise. So yeah, it's just not where you want to be in this type of matchup, just because they're so capable of doing 4,600 in one turn and clearing your board with stuff like Phoenix Wing Wind Blast if they play it. Treeborn Frog comes back. Here's a 2,400 token. That's going to declare an attack on the Caius the Shadow Monarch. And Cormac is asking here if there's anything on declaration. Now, in the battle step, he's going to go ahead and utilize this enemy controller, sacrificing Treeborn Frog to take Caius the Shadow Monarch. But that's going to be met with Solemn Judgment. So Ciro is going to drop to 2,400 here. That enemy controller would have converted to a game shot had this connected, but naturally, 2 back row, you gotta imagine they are somewhat real. So a big Solemn Judgment there from Ciro. Now Cormac, I believe, does have Book of Moon in hand, and you have to sort of consider situations here. Cormac tried to get tricky with this, like bait a Mariforce with his attack on the Caius, and then possibly chain the enemy controller to steal the Caius and then have it die to the Mariforce in response. So I do like his cheeky tricks here, but there is a consideration to utilize that enemy controller in the standby phase and then get access to that Treeborn body coming back again. And since his life total is down at 4,600 here, I think that there's some reasoning to maybe just wanting to use it in the standby phase to just have that extra body. It might make it easier to later convert that Caius, maybe with a double tribute monster or something of that nature. And Cormac does have Book of Moon in hand here, so he could use the Book of Moon to run over this Caius, but he's actually just going to trade the token in the Caius. Maybe trying to save that Book of Moon as like a potential Dyna out or a potential way to, defend himself from an OTK, but awkwardly enough, because the Treeborn is not in play, he can't set the Book of Moon to defend himself. So the Book of Moon is like in an awkward position. It's in his hand. The Treeborn Frog is in an awkward position. It's not defending his life total. And as it stands, Cormac is getting lower. Not saying that Ciro's in a great position himself, but this is a very, you would call it a sharp position in chess, where like you have to navigate some really tricky stuff here, and one misstep could cost you the game. Stratos is going to attack for 18. I do believe the life will get updated at some point, but Cormac is down to 2,800. There's going to be another miscut Caius, a very, very beautiful card. And the Caius is going to activate target Stratos. And unfortunately for Cormac here, he didn't target the back row. So had he targeted the back row, he would have been able to banish this return, cut off the Stratos from getting an additional search, and then just run over the Stratos. But he's going to get an additional search at the cost of some life points here. I will get the life totals adjusted. Cormac Brownick should be here at 2,800, but yeah, I just had missed it for a second there, and I'll get it adjusted here in a second. So there's going to be set back row. That's got to be that Book of Moon, right? End phase, the Stratos gets banished. And now there's a fair number of cards in hand for Ciro. All his engine is online. He's got Diva. He's got another hero. And the second this Diva hits play, well, this is going to be tough. What can I say? So now if I'm Cormac, there's a lot of options here, right? But given that you're at 2,800, which is a pretty low life total, once again, I will get it updated here in a second. You could make a couple arguments for doing various plays here or there. If you book the Diva, then Ciro can't synchro at all. If you book the Gilman, then a potential follow-up Miracle Fusion isn't as bad. So It's tough. It's a tricky situation. Hmm. It looks like he's gonna go book the diva. I personally would have booked the Gilman here, but I don't really know. Just because, like, you have to imagine his hand as a Miracle Fusion. Like, you can't just, like, assume his hand of 4 cards is nothing. Like, it's game 2. Like, the cards are all live, you know? So there's Miracle Fusion. Here comes Absolute Zero. Absolute Zero is going to run over Caius for 600, and Gilman's going to attack directly for 1700, dropping Raunuk to 500. So, yeah, the life total does get corrected here. It might be on that, but, yeah, Treeborn Frog's going to come out here, and that missing enemy controller, a little bit difficult. Without the Book of Moon, he can't really deal with the Absolute Zero effectively. So, yeah, tough situation. And you'll notice in his hand, in Cormac's hand, he has Brain Control and Mausoleum of the Emperor. And he's at 500 life points. Booking the Gilman there would have preserved his life total enough to where he could have used the Brain Control and won this game. So I think a more conservative line there from Cormac, of course, is going to be book the Gilman. But then, if he does have Miracle Fusion, you can always Synchro into Armory Arm and then potentially even win the game that turn. So maybe he was just forced into having to book the Diva now that I'm thinking about it, because he can Miracle Fusion the materials from Grave. So I don't know if he had like any other way to really play around this. The only other thing I could think of was just allowing him to Synchro into whether it's, I don't know, it probably would have been a Synchro into Black Rose Dragon to blow up the field. And then Miracle Fusion would have been activated afterward. But at least you force that. You force the bodies off the table. It's really not a good situation. But I think maybe waiting, and maybe he won't go for Black Rose. You know, maybe he goes for Armory Arm, and he tries to equip the Armory Arm to Gilman, and then he tries to attack or something like that. You can buy yourself that crucial moment. I think there's a chance that if you don't activate the set card there, I don't know. Yeah, he probably does just go Black Rose, and then he miracles out Absolute Zero, and then you only have to deal with Absolute Zero as opposed to Gilman. You are a little bit lower in life points, but I don't really see the difference between 500 and 300. There was a lot of different things Roundup could have done there, but definitely could have waited on using the Book of Moon, and it possibly would have led to a more favorable position for him. That being said, being this low with the 2 cards that cost life points is tough. Here comes Malicious, Tribute Summon, and that's going to blow up the set. Dark Dust with Absolute Zero's effect, and they're going to move on to Game 3. So, a really, really interesting game to navigate. I think Raunuk had like maybe 8 or 9 different decisions there he could have made differently, and reflecting on them and trying to understand, like, was it better to use the enemy controller there and stand by to guarantee to have that Treeborn Frog like defense? Was it better to use the, I don't know, what else? The Book of Moon on the Diva there, or should he have waited for him to go for the Synchro, possibly Miracle Fusion, and then, you still have your Caius in play, and then let's say he just Synchros into like Urbellum or something, and then he goes Miracle Fusion to bring out Absolute Zero. What if he does that? Then all of a sudden you can just book the Absolute Zero, and then you can Brain Controller Mausoleum and still come back into the game. Like, it gives your opponent a lot more opportunities to make mistakes and potentially read a back row that's not actually there. Even Black Rose Dragon blowing up the field and leaving just the lone Absolute Zero as the end board, even though you're at a little bit lower of a life total, I don't think there's a big difference between 500 and 300 in that moment. So, food for thought. Looking at Raunuk's hand, it looks like he's got Gear Town and Mausoleum there, which is very interesting. He's just going to set one monster and pass. It's curious to see Raunuk not just go for those cards and get the Gear Dragon in play. He knows his opponent's on, I don't know, bottomless, so it's possibly that there's just a reason to do that. His opponent could also be on Cyber Dragon, but he doesn't know that. You know what I mean? So that's food for thought. Looks like Regeki Break was found there off the Allure. Stratos Allure Regeki Break is just demoralizing. Very frustrating to play through. There's going to be Sacrifice, Treeborn for Dark Dust Spirit. Dark Dust Spirit's going to attack, and Cyril's going to drop to 5,800. We're going to get this life total thing figured out eventually, but yeah, it's a little bit scuffed for this game. I accidentally take it off the wrong total, but it'll get corrected here in a second. Here comes normal Fossil Dyna, and yep, there it is, corrected. So Cormac is at 68, and Ciro's at 58. Now we do know Cormac plays a fair number of outs to Fossil Dyna. He's thumbed a Book of Moon there to the front, which is just a clear out. Obviously, you can just book the Dyna in draw phase, bring out Treeborn if he needs to. So that's like no problem, but Fossil Dyna does create a headache where it does demand an out. So it's like, okay, this Book of Moon that you could have maybe used later on to interrupt a combo turn, now you have to use it on my like stupid monster that you don't want to use it on, you know? So here comes Treeborn Frog in the standby phase. Book of Moon just proving its versatility as one of the best cards in Edison format. Yet again, Gear Town's going to activate. This is a very, very weird situation to me because he knows that the Fossil Dyna is going to destroy not only the Treeborn Frog, but this Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragon. So I'm curious as to why he's choosing to do this. He flips up Mausoleum. He's going to pay 2,000 life points to the Mausoleum, I believe. No. So he doesn't pay 2,000. He just tribute summons Light and Darkness Dragon. I myself would have paid 2,000 life points. Because then you can connect for 3,000 this turn and you give Ciro one turn. Here comes Regeki Break, discarding Treeborn Frog, and Treeborn Frog is going to melt that Light and Darkness Dragon all the way down. I understand why he tributed the cards. He wanted to be able to special summon back the Ancient Gear Dragon off the Light and Darkness Dragon if it was able to get destroyed here, so it ended up working out well for him, but I would have maybe tried to get more damage. That being said, Ciro does have that second Dyna, which is just pretty unlucky. Light and Darkness Dragon is mandatory to activate, and now I'm not sure if the Mausoleum should have been destroyed or not, but or if the Light and Darkness Dragon resolves without effect. But that being said, it doesn't look like Cormac really has too many outs to this Dyna left over because he had already spent that Book of Moon on the first Dyna. Absolute Zero plus Dyna here is going to be tough. Regeki Break with Treeborn Frog was basically the perfect combination of cards to deal with exactly that. He's going to go ahead and pay life points, pay his last 1,000 life points, I believe, here to summon the Dark Dust Spirit. He should be at like 200 or something. I can't remember what his life total is at this point. I do end up updating it here in a second. Normal summon Gilman. I was watching the game and trying to figure out if Mausoleum would be destroyed by Lad, but once again, I'm not judging the event. The judges were watching and they didn't stop this, so I'm sure Raunuk knows this ruling because he's played this deck more than literally anyone else, and he's just a rulings guy. So, yeah, interesting ruling. Gilman gets summoned and attacked, and as you can see, the life totals are now corrected. He's now at 1,200. So, yeah, he should have been at 1,200, or he should be at 1,200 now. I remember the last time I inputted it was 1,200 because this happened a few hours ago. So, yeah. He's going to go ahead and pay his last 1,000, drop to 200. Normal summon Dark Dust Spirit. Attack direct. Oh, did he not attack direct? He might not have attacked. There comes Normal Diva. And this Deep Sea Diva is going to be able to attack for the last 200 points. And that's going to be all she wrote. Attack for game. And there's the handshake. So Ciro's going to move on to top 4 with Diva Hero. And Raunuk is going to, finish at 8th place with, not 8th place, but 5th through 8th place with some beautiful prizes. I believe 5th through 8 got a first edition Collector's Rare Stardust Dragon. Obviously the gifts from Yggdrasil and an invite as well to RBET Rollers. So a lot of cool stuff. Another thing I wanted to mention too is we did end up upping the top 16 prizing, just, to accommodate the players for their patience. We ended up giving additional Yggdrasil mats to players in 9th through 16th place at the event as just a way to say thank you for your patience as we were dealing with a lot of behind-the-scenes issues and stuff to make sure that the event actually finished. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to top 4. So, like I mentioned, there are a couple of decks in top 4 that were not the ones we just watched. And the top 4 cut ended up being Value Turbo versus Diva Hero. So that's the match that's happening off camera. And this match here that's happening on camera is going to be Guardian Iatos Glads versus Amaryllis with Mystic Tomatoes, I believe, in the list. And this is a, generally speaking, terrible matchup for Amaryllis. So the projected bracket as of right now, with regards to just like, I would say, widely accepted matchup favorability, is that Vayu Turbo would beat the Diva Hero because it's favored in that matchup due to the nature of Royal Oppression and Deck Devastation Virus, of course. And that Glads would beat the Amaryllis deck because favorable matchup, incredibly favorable matchup for Glads. And then in the finals, we would have Glads versus Vayu Turbo. And Vayu Turbo has historically been known to be a slight favorite into Gladiator Beast. It's not an amazing matchup by any means, but it is a slight favorite, I would say. So the projected bracket as of right now is that, and potential upsets always can happen. I mean, it is Yu-Gi-Oh! It is, if one of the players is just playing well, then that's all it can take usually at the end of the day. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And also potentially they have some tech cards we haven't seen that can help improve certain matchups here and there. And that's that. But these players are getting a little bit tired. There are going to be I think 1 or 2 mistakes here. But yeah, like I said, we correct them. We had judges watching the match. We had everyone just making sure everything was going smoothly. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to say about all this. No, let's just get into it. Let's just fucking get into it, boys. All right, so this is going to be Luca versus Doug. There was one thing I wanted to say. I can't really remember what it was, but incredibly cool top 8. Just every single deck is awesome. I can't wait to show you guys the deck lists in the next upload. Make sure you guys are subscribed. You don't want to miss that. That's going to be an absolute banger. Really, really cool deck lists in all of top 16. Actually, I believe I will be posting all of the top 16 deck lists, not just the top 8 deck lists as well. There's some really cool ones. There's, of course, Murray, who went undefeated in Swiss 8-0, but then unfortunately lost in top 16. The top 16 curse strikes again. Let me know in the comments below if you're a player, if you would prefer to cut to top 8, even at these larger style events, just so the person who goes undefeated in Swiss isn't necessarily punished as much in these later Swiss brackets. But, we'll see. All right. Looks like Doug won the rock, paper, scissors, I believe. And he's checking out his hand. Trying to figure out exactly what he's going to do. He's going to normal summon the Quarry, and it looks like he's just going to set 4 cards. So basically the best possible start you could ask for Gladiator Beasts. I really like Doug's deck list, and I also just, even though Doug makes a few misplays throughout the rest of these videos, I do like the way he was playing. Given that everyone was tired, he was kind of capitalizing on it. Lucas said, fuck it, we're here late. I'm going to activate Heavy Storm into 4 back row, and Starlight Road's going to come out. So, pretty tough, and Lucas said, fuck it. I'm going to go for Lone Fire Blossom and try to bring out Titanium. And that's actually going to work. Give me 1 second, I have to... Sorry, I had to sneeze, boys. Give me a second. That was a real time. That's how you know this is real. That's how you know this is uncut, raw stuff here. RBET New York. Finishing out in basically a torn up card shop, the most Battle City shit you've ever seen, and it was actually sick. I want to say that I'm upset that the event went the way it went, but the fact that all the top 8 players were like, fuck it, let's go to this torn up card shop and just fucking duel it out for thousands of dollars of prizing, is insane. And every single one of them was down, so that was really sick. Smashing Ground's going to take care of that Titanium. Game 1 Smashing Ground. One of the cards I actually really like in Gladiator Beast is Smashing Ground. Not only does it improve some of your terrible, terrible matchups like Black Wings and Hero Beat, but it also improves situations like this where you're staring down a Titanium or just a beater, sometimes like a Goyo Guardian or a Stardust Dragon or Turbo Warrior, and you just need to get it the fuck out of the way. I think Smashing Ground is a very underrated card in Edison format, and especially in this Gladiator Beast deck. I remember there was a list that Cameron Saunders showed me in 2020 that was main decking triple Smashing Ground, and every time I played against him, every time he drew Smashing Ground, it was the MVP. And clearly, as you can see in this instance, Smashing Ground is, once again, the MVP. Smashing Ground does not target. Even if it did, it's only lone Titanial here, so it would be forced to Tribute to negate it. But, yeah, Smashing Ground, just a really crucial card. And I know some of you guys are thinking, like, oh, Smashing Ground versus Stardust Dragon. Keegan, you mentioned Stardust Dragon. Can't Stardust Dragon just negate the Smashing Ground? Well, yes, technically it can. But then you get that open board, which is perfect for the Gladiator Beasts to attack, tag into Ready Ari, and banish the Stardust Dragon. So the Smashing Ground does clear Stardust Dragon in a lot of cases from Gladiator Beasts, as long as you can get that attack through, as long as you can get that to connect, or as long as you can Chariot the effect. So, yeah, very, very useful situations there. Start of battle phase, Phoenix Wing is going to target the Stardust Dragon. And this is kind of a tell that Luca's other set card is Mirror Force. Unfortunately for Luca, he's now had to pay Heavy Storm, Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, and a discard just to deal with one Starlight Road. And it really makes you think, if he had Phoenix Wing Wind Blast with Amaryllis in hand, why did he not wait to use the Heavy Storm? So my thought process on this is, you could just say, fuck it, you better have another monster, right? And you better want to summon it. And now when he summons the monster, you can say, okay, that's kind of a tell that he does have Starlight Road, because he's willing to play it into possible Mirror Force Torrential. You've got Mirror Force and Heavy Storm in hand. You have no graveyard. Well, I mean, you have the graveyard of the Lone Fire, etc. But even if he does tag into like Ready Ari and banish your Titanium, it's like not that big of a deal, right? And you taking 1800 is not that big of a deal. So I think a little bit of impatience here got to Luca. One way I would have really liked to see him sequence that turn is actually just set the Phoenix Wing Wind Blast and pass. And based off of the information that Doug gives you, like whether Doug summons another monster or whether he commits further, sorry, not pass, but like go for the Titanial and then go for the attack and then set the Phoenix Wing Wind Blast and pass. And the reason I do like that a little bit more is because if he summons the second monster, then actually what you can do is you can take that as an opportunity to go Phoenix Wing at one of the back row blind. One of the back rows already most likely had to deal with the Titanial, otherwise you're winning anyway. So you've got a 1 in 3 chance at hitting the Starlight Road, and that means that your Mirror Force and your Heavy Storm are going to be free to go for the rest of the game. So I do think that had Luca planned ahead a little bit here, had he understood the information he could gain by playing a little bit more reactively to the situation, had he understood that he really isn't under that much pressure, like, yes, 1800 attack every turn is pressure. It's good pressure, but it's not immediate pressure. He can afford to take 1 or 2 of those hits. Going for Lone Fire into Titanial, forcing one of the back rows, getting your grave kind of nicely set up, and then setting the Phoenix Wing Wind Blast there could have been a much more, I think, reasonable approach to this game, rather than just hoping your opponent doesn't have Starlight Road when they set 4 behind a Loquari. The chances of him having Starlight Road there are pretty high. It could also be Solemn Judgment, in which case that'd be great too, but yeah, generally speaking, if it's Starlight Road, you just lose, and like people just don't set 4 without Starlight Road. So yeah, 3 cards are going to be traded for 1 Starlight Road when it could have been 2 cards. He could have had the Heavy Storm and the Mirror Force, and Doug's going to make a great play here. I mean, he's going to sense danger a mile away, and he's just not going to attack. He says, all right, you got Mirror Force, now you got a dead back row that I can pop with Geyseris later on. Luca's going to go ahead and slam a card trooper on the table, mill 3 cards, but this is just going to be met with the Deep Prison, I'm fairly certain, or Book of Moon or something of that nature. So he's not even going to attack due to the nature of Deep Prison, but honestly, you need to force the issue, right? If you attack, you clear the Deep Prison, that's 1 more back row you're not going to have to play through. As it stands, I mean, yeah, I think you want to attack there. I think you definitely want to attack there. Now I'm thinking about it. Anyway, here comes Special Summon Guardian Iados. This is the premier of Guardian Iatos, not only in a top cut at an RBET, but this high in a top cut, a top 4. This card is very good. It's 2500, 2000, 8-star Wind Fairy monster. It can be special summoned as long as you have no monsters in your graveyard. I've played a lot with this card recently on the channel. Definitely check out the videos where I've been utilizing Guardian Iatos. I think it's one of the most powerful cards in Edison format that doesn't see a lot of play. So if you don't already have your copies, super rare, commons, even secret rares, they're probably already sold out if they're secret rares by the time you're watching this. Sorry to inform you, but go ahead and pick them up and start experimenting with them. Part of the reason they're so good in this deck, and I'm going to be doing an interview with Doug sometime in the next 48 hours, ideally, to help explain why the Guardian Iatos is so good in this deck. But what Doug told me is that the Gladiator Beast deck has a lot of ways to make sure the monsters are out of the graveyard. You can use Equest or Darius to sort of pull those monsters out of the graveyard, which is really cool. So yeah, pretty easy to keep your grave empty. The only card that's not that easy to keep empty is Iatos itself. And there's no way for you to really clear the Iatos itself if he gets Mirror Force or Torrential, but yeah. Here comes Bestiari off the Proving Ground. Just doesn't fear the Torrential. And is going to go ahead and make Geyser's, sense the Mirror Force a mile away based off the Phoenix Wing play. Luca just gave every tell in the book. The Amaryllis and the Geyser's is going to be popped, and that's going to drop Doug to 7,200. And here they're going to figure out the life stuff, so yep. Amaryllis is going to be the first to attack to play around cores. I like this play. Or not Amaryllis, sorry. Iatos. Getting them mixed up there. That's going to deal 2,100. Liqueur is going to attack for 1,800. And Geysers is going to attack for 2,400. Look how much pressure this Iatos dealt. That's a lot of pressure. Now even a Darius alone is lethal. And that's what makes the Iatos in this deck so threatening. Normally, like in my predictions video, I think Gladiator Beast is kind of a dog shit deck. That being said, my predictions are always wrong. So when I predicted Gladiator Beast to do nothing at this event, it was only natural that various Gladiator Beasts made top 16. Not only was it undefeated in Swiss, but ended up making it all the way to the top 4. And this Iatos list does something that I think no other Gladiator Beast list does effectively, which is apply aggressive pressure. Sometimes Gladiator Beast decks, they'll be looking at their hand. It's like, I have one normal summon per turn. I only have one play every turn. Normal summon, attack for 1,200, attack for 1,600. Like, that's just so light pressure. A lot of decks, when they fall behind versus Glads, they have like 2 or 3 turns, sometimes even 4, 5 turns to sort of like stall out till they can maybe find a way to get out of this situation. But with Iatos, all of a sudden, you look at turns like this. This is just an example, right? But I'm sure there are a bunch of other examples. Your opponent maybe has 1 turn. Iatos, Liquari, Iatos, even Equest is 4,100. That's a 2-turn clock on its own. So the amount of pressure this deck applies is insane. Like, just being under that pressure and just being like, fuck, I have to deal with this 2,500 monster that's killing me. And I also have to deal with this heavy back row. And I also have to deal with the threat of these Glads like tagging and giving me a bunch of different advantage. It's just like, brutal. So, yeah. So the Geyser's there is going to tag out. He's going to grab double Ready Ari. Ready Ari is going to banish both Titanial and I believe Amaryllis. And that's going to be that. Just pass turn and say, good luck, have fun, deal with the guys. Unless he wants to make Heraclinos here. I think making this Heraclinos here is a bit ambitious. But he's going to do it. He said, fuck it, have Mark of the Rose or lose the game. Heraclinos is a house versus Amaryllis. 3,000, 2,800 stats make it impossible to get over without cards like Lava Golem. Even face down in defense position if it's booked, Titanial can't even attack over it. So, yeah, it's just an insane beat stick that gets over just about everything in the deck. Draw for turn is, I have no idea. I forget. He's going to attack with Heraclinos, and that's going to activate a Mystic Tomato. So, choosing to tag his Glads out for this Heraclinos might have been a bit hasty. possibly. But I do like the idea of keeping the pressure up and demanding multiple outs to deal with these massive monsters that are now in play. Heraclinos is one of the most powerful cards in Edison format by far, and just having it in play has got to make you feel pretty secure. Here, Doug is thinking really hard about attacking this Mystic Tomato. He's possibly a little bit nervous about something like a Gale coming out. So, that being said, I still like taking the 1100 damage, but not taking the 1100, but dealing the 1100 damage, because I'm fairly certain Doug has the Book of Moon set, so he could even reset something that was halved by Gale. Like, let's say Gale comes out, halves the autos, attacks the autos. Okay, just book the Iatos, and then because Luca's taken 1100, he just dies on that attack because Iatos has 2000 defense. So I do think getting that last 1100 is good. It also makes it so that brain control is no longer an option here. Anyway, Hidden Armor is going to be the top deck. That's going to search Mark of the Rose. Mark of the Rose is going to get played targeting Heraclinos. And there's the Book of Moon that I was talking about. That was pretty much guaranteed to be in those two back row. Asks the defense stat, and he says 2800. Here comes a second Hidden Armory. Almost accidentally shuffles the deck there, but thankfully it was caught. Once again, these players were incredibly tired, but they were still playing fairly sharp given how long the event had gone. They have now played, each of these players has now played 9 rounds, and they're moving into a 10th round. And on top of that, they've had to commute to a different venue in between all of this and to deal with a bunch of other shit. So, once again, just warriors, absolute warriors, these two players. DDR is going to bring back Lonefire. Lonefire is going to activate. And that's going to go ahead and get out, I believe, the third and final Titanial. Tomato's going to switch to defense. Titanial's going to attack the Iatos. I believe there's going to be a checkmate situation here. There's no more cards in hand. Doug's last two back row are Deprison and Compulsory, so he's going to compulse the Mystic Tomato. Luca can sack the Mystic Tomato to defend this, but there's really no reason. He decides to attack anyway with the Titanial because he's dead no matter what, and Deprison gets activated. And Vasey brings out Amaryllis, but this doesn't even matter because he can just flip the Heraclinos, normal Bestiary, and attack. All right, moving on to game 2. So, part of the course, Gladiator Beasts did win game 1, and then on the other side of the feature match in the top 4, we do see Vayu Turbo take game 1 against Diva Hero. So, everything's kind of going par of the course, like I mentioned earlier on. Like, the favorable matchups are kind of going in the favorable matchup favor. All right, let's get through the sideboarding here. A lot of cool stuff that they could be sideboarding here, which, if I had the list pulled up here, I could tell you about. I'm sure you guys understand. I do believe Luca's on triple Lightning Vortex. I do believe Doug is also on some real nice ones, like Ancient Forests and some real powerful effects. I actually love Doug's list. I think I'm going to build it in paper and take it to a locals and try it out myself, because I think it looks like a Gladiator Beast deck that is worth playing, for lack of a better word. And it looks like a Keegan-style deck where it's just super aggressive. Like, you just want to attack as much as possible. Anyway, getting into it. T-set, pass, kind of just classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Standard. Proving Ground here is going to be played. I don't really like this use of Proving Ground from Doug. He has 2 other Glads in his hand. He has a Darius and I believe a Ready Ari, if I remember correctly. But he's going to lead on the Quarry off the Proving Ground. Now, the reason I don't like this is because if a Glad sticks around, you'd rather have Proving Ground. Not only does the Proving Ground allow you to insulate yourself off of a top deck Dust Shoot, but it can turn into a Bestiari and allow you to ladder into Geyserius. Here's going to be step 4. Okay, maybe he only had 1 Darius in hand, if I remember correctly. So the Dust Shoot's not going to matter either way. Here comes M-Phase, Blind Typhoon, and Mirror Force is sniped. So Starlight Road not being sniped is something to be wary of, but Lonefire Blossom off the top, and there is no Chariot from Doug. So a little bit unlucky to not have the Chariot, but there is a bottomless there for Titanial. Does he have the extension? And he does. He does have DDR for Titanial. DDR, Different Dimension Reincarnation, I think is one of the most powerful cards in Edison format. It's going to be met with Solemn Judgment. I think it's one of the most powerful cards in Edison format, that we didn't really play back in 2010. Like it is one of the best, like, just generic extenders. It helps you play through a ton of back row. It's great with all the big bosses, which Edison format is known for. And I think moving forward, we're going to be seeing a lot of DDR in a lot of different decks. We saw a couple different equip spells in various top 8 decks here. We saw the DDR and the Mark of the Rose, and we also saw Autonomous Action Unit utilized in Roundix top 8 decks. So I think the equip spells and like that sort of vibe, it's just kind of a futuristic way to approach Edison format, is the way I would say. It's a way that looks very modern and very intelligent. Having an equip like just be an extender, even if it's just something like an Autonomous Action Unit, which is by all means not a great extender, right? It costs 1,500 life points, and it dependent on your opponent having a good monster in their grave. I think just the nature of having that modern playstyle of I'm gonna play through your back row, it's gonna be something we're gonna see a lot more of. Anyway, here comes Ready Ari, and that's gonna banish the Titanial to keep him off Miracle Fertilizer and banish one of the Lone Fires. That being said, he still does have a second Lone Fire down there, and there's Lightning Vortex. It's gonna clear up both Ready Aris, and there's Hidden Armory. It's gonna mill Mark of the Rose, add back DDR. So monsters in the banish zone, once again, just really not that big of a deal. Here comes Miracle Fertilizer, one of the best cards in this deck, at layering together with the Hidden Armory activations. There's only one card left in hand, it's DDR, it can't be used. Titanial is going to tribute to negate here because he wants to keep one in grave, one in the banish zone, so that top deck Miracle Fertilizer is live, as well as that DDR. And end phase is going to bring out Amaryllis. That being said, any monster here, which is going to be that Bestiari that he did top deck, can run over that Amaryllis, but both Ready Aris are gone. So even though Doug is going to take 800 here, which I do get addressed eventually, I think. The life totals this game were a little bit scuffed, but once again, we were all exhausted, and I was just trying to make sure that no illegal shit was happening at the same time. So, yeah, it's going to be E-Quest, add back Ready Ari. But Doug should be at 7,200 here. Set back row, here comes that DDR that we knew about, and that's going to be met with Compulse. I think you allow the Compulse to resolve because you could top deck trade in here, and that's exactly what Luca says as well. I'm trying to get the life totals adjusted, but actually it should be 3,200 on Doug's side and 4,500 on Luca's, and yeah, we finally get there because 4,000 from the Solemn and 800 from the Amaryllis burn. So yeah, sorry, not 7,200, 3,200. I forgot about the Solemn as well. Here comes a Geyserus that's going to blow up the Amaryllis and drop Doug to 2,400. He's going to attack for 2,400, so it becomes 2,100 to 2,400 here. And Geyserus can now tag out. Did he manage to get one of those Ready Ari back in deck? That's the real question. Or is it still in his hand? I think he had E-Quest Bestiari in play, so I think the Ready Ari is still in his hand, and he can't actually tag into that because he has... I lost my train of thought. He can't tag into it because it's in his hand, and the other one's in the grave. Really begs the question, should you play 3 Ready Ari? But no. Definitely 2 is the standard from what I've heard, and it looks like Doug understands the necessity of second Ready Ari as well, at least here in the post-board games, but he's going to go E-Quest again and add back the other Ready Ari. So just rebuilding his hand advantage and a 2,100 Laquari to boot as well. So yeah, the Gladiator Beast deck, when it gets its engine going, E-Quest adding back monsters and just having consistent threats, it's almost like a more powerful gadget strategy. He goes ahead and summons Ready Ari, and I think this was one of the most egregious misplays of the entire tournament because all he has to do is set the Ready Ari and contact into Heraclinos, and then he wins the game on the spot. But instead, he 3-for-1s himself into Torrential Tribute. I like the aggressive nature, but I think just the exhaustion got to him, and he made a small misplay there. Not that it matters, he's still very far ahead because the E-Quest was able to rebuild for him. He's going to go ahead and tag into Darius to special summon back the E-Quest, I believe. So something about this resource engine, this resource loop, he's actually going to go for a Laquari, that Doug is playing in his deck, that I think a lot of Gladiator Beast players get kind of scared of. He's only playing 1 E-Quest and 1 Darius, just as utility monsters are going to. And I kind of like it because they're usually pretty mediocre draws, and they're usually pretty mediocre normal summons. So I think one thing that Glad decks moving forward need to really do is minimize those number of bricks and normal summons. Anyway, here comes Catastor, and He's not going to attack to play into a deep prison. He's going to set 2 on Doug's side. One of them is a chariot, so the catastrophe is going to be out at this turn. And because Luca did pass, I mean, it's going to be a pretty clear-cut route to victory. Doug reads the catastrophe to make sure it activates. He's going to attack. He's going to go ahead and chariot the catastor. Catastor's going to get negated and destroyed. And then the Liquari is going to attack for 1,800, dropping Luca down to 300. So, set new back row pass. He could have tagged out the Darius, but there's no more requests left in the deck, so there's just no real equitable tag out there because there's only one request. Here comes normal Lila, and that could possibly trade with the Darius to clear the whole board of monsters, but he's actually going to use it to pop a back row and just hope to mill something to survive here. There was a deep prison, so if he had attacked, he would have guaranteed lost. And FaZe's going to mill 3, not hit a plant to survive, and offer the fist bump. And yeah, Doug is going to move on to the finals. So, you know, the complete opposite of my predictions, like I said. I predicted Gladiator Beast to do absolutely nothing at this event, and they did a lot moving into the finals here. The projection did end up coming true. And then on the other side of the bracket, in a very, very, very close Game 3, Richard with Vayu Turbo was able to take down Zero with TV Hero. So the bracket projection is going, you know, as planned. And so we've got Vayu Turbo versus Gladiator Beast in the finals. And boy, let me tell you, this is a match. This is a crazy match. This is one of the most raw matches of Yu-Gi-Oh! I've ever seen. So yeah, here comes a high roll. And Doug is going to win the high roll. So he's going to be able to go first. Richard, you know, he's got his deck. Richard has been telling me for ages that he is going to win in RBET. And right now he's never been better positioned to win in RBET. He's got a great, well, not great, but definitely favorable matchup in the finals. He's got Royal Oppression deck versus Gladiator Beasts. So Richard speaking his words into action possibly, saying, oh, you know, I believe I'm going to win. And as a result, he made it all the way to the finals. And that's something that I've noticed in not just this game, but a lot of other games. I'm going to pause here to talk about this for a second. Is that you have to believe you're going to win the event. You have to be a little bit delusional. Because if you don't have the mentality that you're going to win, then you're not going to be, I don't know, like you're not going to be mentally relaxed enough to be able to win in a lot of cases. And it's much easier to get tilted when you're not being delusional, as weird as it sounds. So, yeah, basically just be delusional is what I'm saying, at least a little bit. And maybe it carries you all the way to at least the finals. And this is Richard's second top 8 in a row, or top in a row. I believe he made top 16 at RBET Maryland. So, you know, just speaking his truth, speaking his existence. It's going to be set 3 with Darius and then set 2 from Richard. And, yeah, Doug is just in a commanding position here. Like, just, and the reason he's in a commanding position is because of this card he's decided to play. He's going to normal summon a Ready Ari, attack for 1,200, attack for 1,700. No Mirror Force, none of that shit's getting flipped here. He's going to tag out the Ready Ari, and then Richard's going to pay another 800. Look at the life totals here. Richard dropping to 4,300. Doug's still at 8,000. And then the Trapstone gets flipped on the Royal Oppression. And this is just backbreaking. Like, I mean, that's going to be most likely just the game. Pops the card with the Bestiari. Pops a Deck Devastation Virus in the main. Richard is on 1 copy of Deck Devastation Virus in the main. And it did look pretty bad for him in all of his games that he drew it. So, you know, for those of you doomers who are like, oh, you know, Virus in main is like the new future, whatever. Every time I saw someone draw it in the main deck on camera, they got absolutely fucking ass blasted by like Glads or Blackwings or something like that. So, you know, food for thought. The card is very high rolly. It's not as consistent as a different back row you could have in your main deck. Granted, it does improve your matchup into Frogs, and it probably helped Richard in that matchup specifically. And there was an abundance of Frogs. I actually do believe from like just the list that I looked through. I think I looked through a large majority of the list. That Frogs was the number 1 most played deck this weekend, which is crazy. It's insane to see Blackwings not be the number 1 most played deck, and also Vayu Turbo not be the number 1 most played deck either. So yeah, Frog's moving all the way to number 1 and having a decent representation, I believe. I believe there were 2 like Frog-ish decks in top 8, which is, it's fine. It's solid. But yeah, once again, Frog's not making it to the finals or even past the first round. Actually, no, I think. Well, yeah, there were 2 frog decks in top 8. Yeah, there were 2 frog. There was a Hero Frog and the Gear Town Frog. Yeah. Anyway, here comes Laquari running over Greffer, and even though that Mirror Force got played, the Resource Loop is enacted, and yeah, I mean, just gonna be able to request back Laquari and get his +2 right back off that Mirror Force, and Richard's just bleeding cards. He needs to find a second Oppression or Heavy Storm to deal with these back row, or just a way to counter offense this situation. And the third back row from Doug there is going to be most likely lights out for Richard here in game 1. Richard showing a lot of weakness. Once the Gladiator Beast deck is established, even cards like Raikou are just embarrassingly bad. Attack from the Quarry, and Gorz is dropped, met with Chariot. Just literally bleeding cards. The Chariot's going to be added back for free once these cards get tagged. eQuest is going to be ready. Ari to banish the Necrogarna. Pretty straightforward play here. Doug, despite being exhausted after all these rounds, he's still being, cautious, thinking through his lines, and I really like the way Doug played this. And one thing Doug also said after the tournament as well is that he said that being able to practice with top players is what was basically the big turning point with him being able to do so well at this tournament. He says his locals is incredibly stacked, a lot of strong players there. James Ark is one of the players he mentioned by name, but he also mentioned like Little Man Yu-Gi-Oh! And a few other guys go to his locals. And he said just being able to be around those guys and practice with those guys. Another one of the top 16 players, Jamal, also goes to his locals. And he said because these guys go to his locals and he has such tough competition, he's able to like practice and it's helped him prepare not only like gameplay wise but mentally at facing down scary opponents or opponents that maybe he doesn't feel are as scary because he's had that practice. Anyway, Compulsory is going to stop that. Brain Control. Here comes an attack with 1 ready Ari. The second one's going to be met with Deep Prison. But honestly, you're probably fine with that. Here comes said back row. And pass the turn. Draw for turn from Richard is tough. He's got a return set, which will at least buy him 1 turn, but things don't look great. Here comes Normal Summon eQuest. That was obviously put back in the hand. Here comes Raikou. That's going to be met with War Chariot. Ready Ari's going to attack for 1,200. Here comes the Necrogarna. And I really, really, really like what Doug does here. Now, the Necrogarna was brought back in defense position because it has to be, right? He's at 200 life points. If it's brought back in attack, Ready Ari just attacks and he loses. So, Doug assessing the situation, he's like, I've got 6,300 life points. I'm going to attack into this Necrogarna, take 100, and be able to tag that as well. But Doug, he speaks the line out loud in his house. He's like, or in his mind, he's like, do I want to attack here? And he like speaks through it. And he decides, yeah, I do. And I think just sometimes verbalizing like, do I want to do this? And just like kind of like giving yourself that thought process can really help. And it does end up being the correct decision here by a wide margin. He's going to be able to tag into Laquari, I believe. That's what he wants to go for. Yeah, Laquari plus a quest to add back the Chariot. And I mean, this is just curtains for Value Turbo. Like, you're never coming back from this. Like, even if you top deck like Chaos Sorcerer at this point, like best possible cards at this point, it's just like, just go next. So Doug's going to take game 1 with a back-breaking Trap Stun. One of the best cards in this matchup is Trap Stun because really, once you get your engine going, there's not too much that you fear because the Chariot can stop most of the scariest stuff, which is like Greffer Armedwing type shit. You just need to save your spot removal for the key beaters like Soroka that they may have. But cards like Raikou, cards like Vayu, cards like Hamster especially, cards like even Caius are pretty clunky and can get punished by these Gladiator Beast decks like pretty effectively. In the sideboards, you'll have even more issues, even more ways to deal with those beaters. So just being able to go up a game here as Doug is pretty impressive. Richard, maintaining composure, honestly, it's funny, he made a comment in between games. He's like, I'm too tired to be nervous, which is based. Sometimes that's what you got to do. You got to exhaust the nerves out of your body and just say, like, all right, this is reality, and it can kind of help you accept situations that otherwise may tilt you, like losing game one to Glads. So, once again, unfavorable matchup for Doug. Not an unwinnable matchup, and I do think the Guardian Iados bring a lot to the table in this matchup specifically. So, I think it's at least 45% in Doug's favor. So, slightly unfavorable, but definitely doable. And game one just went to show exactly how it's doable. There's charge mill value, Caius and Raikou, so beautiful mill. Lights and darks for Chaos Sorcerer, which Richard is playing, as well as a value. So literally best possible mill that you could ask for at any given moment, other than just having a Sirocco as well. Set monster pass. How does Doug break serve here? And I think that this is where Doug has like probably the worst game of his entire tournament. He makes several what I would consider to be extreme misplays here. And the first is special summoning the Guardian Iatos and then activating this Ancient Forest. And the second is just not holding the Guardian Iatos, basically. Ancient Forest is a really cool card, very powerful card, and I'm not surprised to see it here in the finals. The way it works is if a monster attacks at the end of the battle phase, it gets destroyed, and when it's activated, it flips off defense position monsters to attack position, and flip effects are not activated. So it completely neuters Raikou. Completely neuters it. You play it, Raikou gets flipped face up, and then all of a sudden, their Raikou is just dead. And not only is it dead, but it gives you an outlet for a direct attack, a pseudo-direct attack with a Gladiator Beast. So let's say your opponent has a set monster and like a few big monsters. You can activate Ancient Forest, flip that Raikou face up, and then tag off of it with a Gladiator Beast. And the cool thing about Ancient Forest and Gladiator Beast is that it allows you to tag before your monster would be destroyed. So the downside really only affects the opponent. The way that I think Doug wants to play this game, personally, is to actually just activate the Ancient Forest first before special summoning the Iatos. There's a good chance that set monster is something like a Fossil Dyna. And since Fossil Dyna is not necessarily a flip effect, it's just an effect when flip face up, it would actually activate there. Not saying that Richard would set a Fossil Dyna with no back row, turn one. That's absolutely insane. Or that he would even side in Fossil Dyna versus Glads. That seems like a terrible decision, but I just think it's a minor sequencing error where, like, even in the 0.1% that Richard has a brain lapse, sides in Fossil Dyna, his only play is to set it there. I lost my train of thought. It's just, you can still special the Iatos after you activate Ancient Forest, but it's better to activate Ancient Forest first because you might gain information that makes you not want to special the Iatos yet. That's basically what I'm saying here. So, and I actually think specialing the Iatos is bad because it's a resource you could use later after your opponent is forced to deal with the Ancient Forest. So here comes normal Aquari, and I think this is massive misplay from Doug here. He attacks with the Iatos. So now he's just going to trade his Iatos for 2,300 burn, which I think is just a terrible play. You're not winning this game by out-aggroing Vayu Turbo. That's just not something that you're ever doing, right? That level of pressure is and like, while I understand it, now you have Iatos in your grave. Future Iatos are dead top decks. I really, really hate this play. I think that if Doug had just activated the Ancient Forest, saw what was set, decided to go for the Proving Ground normal Aquari, and start getting his tag engine going, get the Rediari out, banish the Vayu, sandbag the Iatos. If the Rediari dies, then you can Equest it back and special the Iatos later after the opponent is forced to deal with it, forced to attack over the Rediari, forced to play into the Ancient Forest. So, that was misplay number 2. And I think the first misplay was like a minor sequencing error, but I definitely would have held the Iatos. The second misplay of attacking is just a straight blunder. It's just like throwing away a card and throwing away all of your advantage in this matchup. So I really dislike that play from Doug. I think it was a really, really bad play. No offense. I mean, obviously he's in the finals and I'm not, but I just want to like clarify for the people watching so that they understand, like, you got to recognize your roles in matchups, you know? You got to recognize what's up, you know? Maybe he wants to get the yugioh down that turn anyway, just to get it down under royal oppression, which is totally understandable. So maybe he does want to special summon it there just to play around a possible top deck oppression, but his opponent didn't set anything turn 1, so the likelihood of him top decking oppression was 2 out of like 37 or something like that. 36, sorry. Not 36, sorry. 33, maybe a little less because he charged. Like 2 out of 30. So like 1 out of 15 chance he top decks an oppression. So maybe you want to play around that top deck possibility. Sure, okay, get the yugioh down while there's no back row. But attacking with it is definitely a blunder. Force the opponent to deal with the ready Ari. Force them to deal with the ready Ari. And then force them to deal with the Ancient Forest. You feel me? Anyway, here comes Chaos Sorcerer, and that's just a disgusting threat under Ancient Forest. And Doug is like, fuck me, right? He's looking at his back row. He's got Solemn Judgment. He's got Book of Moon. He's going to allow Richard to activate targeting the ready Ari, and he's going to book the ready Ari. I don't really like this play. I think what he should have done was actually save the book and let the ready Ari get banished. Because if you save the book, you can always book the Chaos Sorcerer, attack into it with a Glad, tag into Murmillo, and pop it. Whereas now, you can't deal with his attack position Chaos Sorcerer. You're relying on Richard to make a dumb decision, like switch it to defense. So yeah, here comes Rhoda for Greffer. Greffer gets summoned, and that's going to be Solemned. And I think this is yet another misplay from Doug. I think Solemning the Greffer doesn't make any fucking sense. Just keep your Solemn. Let the Greffer attack your ready Ari. The Ancient Forest will kill the Greffer for free. You stay at 8,000, you keep your Solemn Judgment, and you trade a ready Ari for a Greffer. Is that not the best possible trade you could ask for? Now you have a ready Ari. You're down to 4,000. You've lost your Solemn, and you can't deal with this Chaos Sorcerer with the ready Ari anyway. So what was the point of keeping the ready Ari? Like, you literally are hoping to top deck Bestiari or Proving Ground here. That's the only way that this play makes any sense. Now, granted, you do have to get a little lucky, but yeah, I think keeping the Solemn Judgment is going to win you more games. And even, honestly, keeping the Book of Moon in a lot of instances is going to win you a lot of games. Anyway, there's a top deck Greffer, so second Greffer off the top from Richard. He's going to activate that pitching value and sending Necrogarna. So Necrogarna is an insane card in this matchup. It's very, very useful. Richard knows that there's a new back row that was just top decked. Switches the Chaos Sorcerer to defense because he does have now that Necrogarna to defend from a single Glad to attack. He's going to attack with the Greffer. That's going to hit the ready Ari, and then the Greffer is going to get destroyed. So even if Doug does find a way to attack into the Chaos Sorcerer, he's going to need a Chariot to play through the Necrogarna. So food for thought. But I don't know if switching to defense here was a good play. It's possible it's not. It's possible he should have just said, fuck it, have Mirror Force. I think the likelihood of Doug's first back row being Mirror Force is 0. Because he wouldn't have Solemn to Greffer if he had Mirror Force. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. So, yeah, I don't know. It's food for thought. Another thing that I think Richard could have considered on the last turn there was just going for game with Plague into Bryonic. His opponent's at 4,000. Just win the game. You know what I mean? Like, you know the last back row ain't doing shit. Just bounce the new back row. The Ancient Forest even can stay in play and bounce the monster. And attack, GG. I don't know. I think he played it a little passively as well. But once again, these players are exhausted. This is now their 12th round of Yu-Gi-Oh! This day. It's now, I believe, almost 2 a.m. Armageddon Knight's going to be normal summoned, send Sirocco. So, you know, mistakes are going to be made. And even if they were fresh, even if they were first thing in the morning, I think mistakes are going to be made no matter what, because people make mistakes. Here comes Summon of Armed Wing. That's going to be met with a Bottomless Trap Hole. And once again, I just really think Richard did not press his advantage here nearly as much as he should have. But yeah, he passes the turn back, sets back row, passes. Draw for turn is, I don't even fucking know. He just doesn't attack with the Armageddon Knight. He really doesn't want to lose that guy, that boy. But yeah, Chaos Sorcerer still in defense, still forcing Chariot plus Glad to attack through there. You can set a back row pass. End phases can be met with Dust, so Dust trades with Dust. Can't be chained because it was set that turn. Sets new back row. I just think this game devolved into this top deck war that it never needed to, had Doug just utilized his resources efficiently. Ancient Forest could have bought him several cards here. It could have bought him a Solemn Judgment. It could have bought him a Book of Moon. It could have bought him a Guardian Iatos. So Doug losing essentially 3 cards to his own Ancient Forest that could have been net by it is pretty crazy. So Ancient Forest looks amazing here, but Doug did have to play it correctly in order for it to really get its maximum value. But it was worth at least 4 cards because it not only cleared the Raikou, but it could have saved him a bunch of cards later down the line when defending his monsters. So yeah, here comes the Darius attack on the Chaos Sorcerer, and there is a Necro Garnet down there, and yeah, it's gonna be tough. You know, Chaos Sorcerer effect activates. Darius switches it to attack position. Doug cracks a joke here where he's like, damn, I thought you would leave it in defense position. And Richard's like, I had to get to the finals by playing well at some point, which was really funny. 2 new back row from Doug, but he's just in a bad spot. I believe he has like compulsory, not a lot of great ways of dealing with his Chaos Sorcerer. So. Especially because there's more lights and darks in the grave. So yeah, normal Gale. Gale's preliminary pressure. That's going to deal 13. And then Chaos Sorcerer's going to attack. And here comes Return, and that's going to be met with Trapstone. So both players are going to be dropping down incredibly low. Gale's going to die to the Ancient Forest. So, dude, Ancient Forest was worth 5 cards this game. That's insane, right? That's insane. Anyway, drop for turn. Passes the turn back. Banish, special that Sorcerer once again. Attack once more, and there's compulsory once again. Set a new monster, which I believe is the 3rd Raikou. Draw for turn, it's another back row. Sets it. Here comes Flip Raikou. Target the new back row. It's Smashing Ground. Why did we set it? I don't know. But alas, here it is. Mill some cards, Tribute Summon Sirocco, and this is going to be game through any back row because he has the extension of Chaos Sorcerer. So, yeah, good stuff. Well, not game through any back row, but it's going to put Doug to 0 cards through any back row. And honestly, like, I think that is a masterclass in how not to play with Ancient Forest. I think what should have been done from Doug's position is just leverage the fact that you can gain a lot of like these Smashing Ground style effects from Ancient Forest, and don't spend your removal spells on monsters you don't need to remove. That's just, I think that's like 101. And also don't play your Iatos into it. That doesn't make a lot of sense just for 2300 burn. When that Iatos could have gained a lot of value as the game went on after Richard was forced to answer the Ancient Forest. So, and also the Iatos could have defended him from like aggression. Could have ran over that Chaos Sorcerer, traded with that as well. Like let's say he goes Chaos Sorcerer, try to banish the Iatos. You can then book the Iatos if you want to, or you could summon the Chaos Sorcerer there and just just be crushing basically. So a lot of decisions from Doug that could have been made differently, but I think the big one there was just not allowing the Ancient Forest to do what it was designed to do, which is kill shit. And yeah, he just didn't let it do it. He spent other cards killing shit that he didn't need to spend. He lost a lot of card equity and card economy in a honestly, I think that was a 1 game from Doug. So pretty crazy that this could have been a 2-0 from Doug, especially going second into, I think, like I said, an unfavorable matchup, but it just goes to show the strength of some of these new tech cards, Ancient Forest, Guardian Iatos, that sort of thing. I mean, those are just great cards, and seeing them in action definitely can kind of showcase exactly like why those cards are so powerful. Here comes the shuffles before game 3. Both players here just on the precipice of greatness, right? Is this going to be the first Gladiator Beast win and the first win for Guardian Iatos in an RBET? Is this going to be Vayu Turbo's, like 6th win at an RBET, I believe, something like that? Is this going to be Richard's first place that he's been gunning for, that he's been telling me for months that he's going to get? What's going to happen? Who knows? There's only one way to find out. Move forward. Laquari set 3. Sirocco is going to be met with a deep prison. Here comes Charge Light Brigade. Mills return Dust Tornado Torrential. Horrendous mill. And that's kind of the issue with these cards, these mill cards. They tell your opponent what to play around. Now that torrential is milled, Doug doesn't have to respect torrential at all. In fact, he's going to normal Darius, and he's going to attack. And there's the Mirror Force, and there's the Trap Stun yet again. Beautiful Trap Stun, and just a crushing card as a way to play through multiple back row here. He's now going to be able to tag into Bestiari. Bestiari is going to be able to blow up that other back row. And oh my gosh, just a disgusting Trap Stun. That's going to blow up a Royal Oppression. So Trap Stun there trading for Royal Oppression and Mirror Force. Incredibly busted. Doug going to leave Bestie plus Laquari in play to threaten a Geyserist to blow up that Raikou that he does know about. Richard's Graveyard looking pathetically bad, but he does have Dark Refer plus Fayu to mount a comeback here. So, got to do it. You got to clear these monsters, got to get them out of the way, and this is a great way to do it. This runs over both of them. Attack the Bestiari, and there's a Mirror Force from Doug himself. Richard couldn't afford to play around it. He's down to 4,500. Doug's looking at his hand, normal summon a quest, and there's a handshake from Richard, and Doug becomes the very first Gladiator Beast player to ever win an RBET, and he does it with a very, very fresh and new list, showcasing the power of a lot of new tech cards, Trap Stun, Ancient Forest, Guardian, Yatos, winning in dominant fashion. That could have been a 3-0 victory from Doug. Think about that. It could have been a 3-0 victory, but I think he played game 2 terribly. Like, honestly, very impressive stuff from Doug. I'm excited to have him on for the interview. I'm sure Guardian Yatos prices are already through the roof, so there goes my chances of ever getting the playset of secrets. However, I do want to shout out Sebastian for hooking it up with one over the event weekend. And one last thing before we, end this video, wrap this video up, is I cannot express my gratitude enough for everybody's patience this weekend. This event was a nightmare to get coordinated. It was literally everything that could have gone wrong went wrong with this event. And we still had one of the sickest top 8s. One of the sickest, just events with hundreds and hundreds of the coolest people showing up. And the community just overwhelming positive response during the event. Even when things were going low-key pretty badly in some cases, everyone just wanted to make sure the event went well. And like I said, these events are for you guys. We're doing maybe pennies on them. We throw these events for you guys, and just hearing that positive feedback and just hearing a lot of people gave constructive criticism, which I love, and definitely going to be working on some new stuff for the next IRL RBET to help improve on this one. But yeah, just thank you guys for all of your support and all of your positivity and just being down to help work with us to make the best events possible for you guys. And shout out to all the top 8 players for putting on a fucking amazing show. Going to be posting the deck lists probably later this evening or maybe in a couple hours, depending on how my voice feels. I am, on a few hours of sleep. We streamed the event yesterday for 12 hours, 15 hours. Everyone on the staff was just they put their heart and soul into this. So, really happy that it came together and we were able to get you guys one of the sickest fucking final matches of all time. Edison format, baby, to the moon. Literally 8 different decks in top 8. Best format of all time. Not even close, in my opinion. It's not even close. The gameplay was just beautiful. There's so much to learn, so much to just dissect here. So many new techs, so much fresh innovation. Awesome stuff from these players. Can't wait to see you guys in the next video for the top 16 deck lists. Smash like. Peace.